And this book is awesome. It's also a little different too. So
Yeah.
before we begin, Carlo, let's define what is relativism and what's the new relativism.
Yeah. So, relativism, generally speaking, is the philosophical worldview that there is no truth, or also stated as there is no absolute truth, which is interpreted as there's only truth, there is no truth independent of what you or I happen to think, which would be a individual form of relativism, or there's no truth independent of what a group of individuals happens to think or say. That would be a cultural form of relativism. So it's the denial that there is an objective reality that all minds are subject to conform to converge on. Rather than that, relativism asserts that we all have our own distinct realities, our own distinct truth. So that's relativism, generally speaking. And of course, there's partial forms of relativism where it partial different where it says there might be some absolute truth in some areas, but no absolute truth in a particular area. The common example being moral relativism. So someone might acknowledge that there's objective truth when it comes to math, 2 plus 2 equals 4, or science, maybe the law of gravity, or something else. But when it comes to morality and human behavior, there's no objective truth when it comes to right and wrong human behavior. For what is right or wrong is relative to the individual's judgment as to what is good for him or her, individually speaking. And so that would be a partial form of relativism, and that example, particularly moral relativism. Some will say that religious truths are relative to the individual or to the community. Now, my book is entitled The New Relativism. So, what's new about relativism today? Well, as you know, Gary, not too long ago, relativism was very blatant and in your face. There is no truth. You have your truth, I have mine. Let's agree to disagree. And with regard to moral relativism, there is no absolute right or wrong. We sort of determine that ourselves, or the community in which we live in determines that. And so it was very blatant not too long ago, and everybody was encouraged to jump on the bandwagon of the relativists. The new relativism, in contrast to the old, is not blatant. Rather, it's lurking behind the mask or the curtain or the verbiage of a new moral absolutism. So there is a push of a new moralism within contemporary culture that we must conform to. Some have even termed it the shame culture, right? Where we are shamed and canceled if we don't conform to certain moral imperatives of our modern culture that fall under the broad label of what we call wokeism, right? So we can't be a white supremacist. We can't impose our beliefs. We cannot say we cannot say he when the person is claiming to be a she, right? Or vice versa. You cannot say she when the person is biologically a male. You cannot say when biologically a female. So you can't say he or she, depending on what the person claims to be. You can't be intolerant. We got to tolerate everybody's beliefs and lifestyle choices. You cannot misinform. Don't you dare be guilty of misinformation, right? You can't be anti-science. We need to be pro-science. You can't be a judgmental, hateful bigot. So these are all modern moral imperatives that we're very much aware of and we encounter in our daily lives and common human experience at the workplace and at home, right? And so you would think that relativism is dead. Relativism is passé. Relativism is buried and long gone, which, Gary, as I point out in the introduction of my book, many have made such a claim that we're no longer dealing with relativism. But, Gary, as I show in my book, when you scratch the surface of these moral imperatives, you will discover very quickly that some of them are just outright relativism. Whether total relativism or intellectual relativism, there's just no truth whatsoever, or moral relativism. There's no absolute truth when it comes to lifestyle choices and human behavior. And even if some of these moral imperatives are not full-blown relativism intellectually or morally, they're at least a practical form of relativism. They at least promote behaviors that would suggest that you might as well not care about truth anyway. Truth sort of takes the back seat. Not even the back seat, Gary. Truth is just thrown out the car, right?
Yeah, boy. Yeah, there's so much to unpack in what you just said. You know, the attractiveness of the old relativism was the appearance of that it promotes peace and tranquility, you know, mutual respect. You have your universe, I have mine, you know.
Right.
But that's gone with the new relativism because it's, like you said, it's more in your face. It's dictatorial.
Yes. So
it loses its attractiveness, right?
Yeah. So the late Pope Benedict XVI, his claim about the dictatorship of relativism, it still rings true even more so today. Yeah, right. Because the relativism today is more of a dictatorship than it was not too long ago. The tides have changed such that it is a dictatorship in the sense that you must obey, you must conform to what the powerful elites and those who are in charge of the cultural narrative have to say, silencing any opposition, any reasonable opposing views to the status quo. That opposing view must be canceled and must be silenced. And no persuasion of mind is even attempted nor allowed. And that, Gary, is just simply the offspring of old-fashioned relativism, because we've always argued that within the mental framework of relativism, you can only logically end up in might makes right, because persuasion of the mind is no longer allowed or possible because objective reality has been denied for minds to be conformed to. So you only end up, logically speaking, with a conflict of wills, and the will with the most power is going to win the day. And that is what we're living out today. And in that way also, the relativism of contemporary culture is new as well. We're experiencing the offspring of relativism.
Absolutely. We're chatting with Carlo Broussard about his brand new book, The New Relativism. More to come right after this.